Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, hi.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Thanks for a great interview last week. Just a good stuff.
Well, thank you.
And we got curling happening pretty soon, hey?
Yeah, we got real, actual curling that matters in terms of Olympic qualification coming up. It is the pre-trials and the pre-trials coming up in Ottawa, and that is going to kick off on Wednesday of this week. Scott, you've been on the road for the past week. I am on the road currently, but we will both be back in Ottawa this week, and no fans are allowed in to this event. But thanks to Curling Canada, we will have access to see some of the games that are going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of when will be the time for us to go. But yes, we will be in the building for at least some of this week, looking at all the teams looking to qualify either direct berth into the trials or a berth into those pre-trials.
Yeah, so we will have some coverage over the course of the week, and check out next week's episode where we'll have a bunch of audio from the event and just give a sense of what it was like in the building. And we'll do updates and stuff on social media when we're in the building. And Curling Canada is going to be streaming one game per draw for 3 of the draws. I think there's a 4 draw per day during this event, but so there'll be 3 games a day.
Mm-hmm.
That will be streamed on the Curling Canada YouTube page. TSN is not going to do any coverage of this event. And from what it looks like, from what I could see from the photos, looks like they've just picked a sheet, and that's going to be the TV streaming sheet that they'll have at the RA Center, new facility in Ottawa. The RA Center, it's down at Billings Bridge, if you know the city at all, down Bank Street, past where the football stadium is. And the new facility is actually a hockey rink that they're converting to their curling club, the RA Center. This had a curling club for a very long time. The facility wasn't the greatest, though, in terms of the ice equipment. So they've shifted over to one of the hockey pads for the curling club, and the curling facility will now be a pickleball center. And this is really what the sense is, that this is going to be a high performance center. Curling Canada seems invested in it. No official announcement in that regard, but an interesting setup in there. There's going to be half sheets for practice throughout the year, and a 5-sheet facility in the old hockey barn there. So it should be a lot of fun. Scott, I'm looking forward to just seeing the new setup that the RA Center is going to have.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool to see. Sean, have you ever curled there?
I have not. No, I've only ever played softball outside at the RA Center. Never been in the curling facility.
I went into the curling facility one time. I think we were there for a work team building day, and we played beach volleyball when it was about 8 degrees outside. So during that event, I wandered into the curling club just to see what it looked like. It looked pretty cool. But like you say, they're going to turn that space into the pickleball and move the curling into one of the ice pads that were originally designed for hockey. So yeah, I'm just intrigued to see what it all looks like, how it goes. It should be cool.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And we have a bunch of teams coming into town to try to earn their way to Beijing. The long road to Beijing 2022, for Canadian teams at least, kicks off here this week in Ottawa. Scott, let's start with the pre-trials. And I'm going to, what Curling Canada is calling the Trials Direct Entry event. This is, I think, the higher profile event of the two. These are going to be teams who you might be more familiar with, who are going to be participating in this event. We have, on the men's side, 5 teams competing for 2 spots. And on the women's side, we have 5 teams competing for 3 spots. And this is into the event in Saskatoon. The teams that do not qualify for the trials will get a spot in the pre-trials, in Nova Scotia in October. This is what we talked about in the spring on the show. And Scott, these are teams where you look at them, and to me at least, on the men's side, it's going to be surprising because one of these teams won't be in Saskatoon, just even regardless of how this event goes and the pre-trials goes. On the women's side, it's all of these teams could actually qualify, 3 through this event and 3 through the pre-trials. So is there anyone on this list who really stands out to you potentially as a favorite?
I think on the men's side, it's Matt Dunstone for sure. We talked to Kirk a couple weeks ago, and they're a team that has made the playoffs the last 2 years at the Brier. Pretty surprising for them not to be already in that event. I think they've got to be the favorite. Team McEwen maybe like a 1B behind them, but Dunstone I think is like the real. If they don't get through this event, I would be surprised.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that on the men's side, Dunstone would be the favorite here. So on the men's side, you do have Matt Dunstone, Colton Flash, Jason Gunlickson, Glenn Howard, and Team Mike McEwen. Those are the 5 teams, again, competing for the 2 spots. The men's teams that are already in, Brendan Botcher, they qualified through the CTRS points system. John Epping through the Canada Cup in 2019. Gushu through the 2020 Brier. Jacobs on the points for 2019-20, and then Cooey is there on points for the year before. So yeah, it is a little surprising that Dunstone didn't get in. If this was a normal qualifying process, they would have been there on points, but we didn't have a normal qualifying process. I think the team that's kind of going to be fun to see is Colton Flash. We haven't seen him skip since he was with Cooey, and that team had the shakeup with John Morris coming in. So Colton Flash, he has some names who we're familiar with, who we've seen at the Brier before. This will be the first time that we have a chance to see them as a foursome and to see Colton back as a skip. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how that team has come together in the year and a half since they've been put together and how their last season went, given that we didn't see them much. So that'll be a lot of fun. And certainly always fun to see Gunlickson out there throwing the high, hard ones.
Yeah, Gunlickson, I think they'll be pretty good for this event. They only have the one under their belt with Matt as their second. So, Jason's always fun to watch. He's always bringing something new to the events, be it some kind of weird strategy or some funny quip. So it'll be fun. Team Glenn Howard's going to be there, like you said, with the skipper back in the saddle after Wayne Madoff filled in more than admirably at the Brier. So all these teams fun to watch. There will be a lot of good curling. Who are you expecting for that second spot, Sean?
I'm going to give the edge to McEwen there to get that second spot. Yeah. But what's interesting, so they're doing a round robin for the trials direct entry. So, and the men's are going to have a modified round robin with the 2 spots. So this is one where you can't really give it up at all, right? It's possible that one team goes undefeated and then the other team has another team has 1 loss to the undefeated team. And if that's the case, like an early loss, you can't really hang a loss and have a chance here. So it's going to see who can come out fast, who's playing well so far. Dunstone had a good week when they played that event in Oakville, the Stu Cells. Glenn Howard won the event the week before there in late August, the Oakville Fall Classic. So they've had a good start to their season. So it's just going to be who can come out there that first day, who can figure out the ice, who can get that draw weight down, and you'll be way ahead of the game in a really short event.
Really short event, yeah. So
that you'll have the round robin, modified round robin on the men's side, and there will be potential playoffs where necessary.
We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. So over on the women's side in the direct entry event, Suzanne Burt, Corinne Brown, Kelsey Rock, Casey Scheidegger, and Laura Walker are the 5 teams competing for the 3 spots to join Carrie Anerson, who is in the trials for her Scotties Championships. Tracy Fleury is there from CTRS Points. Rachel Holman from the 2019 Canada Cup. And Jennifer Jones from Points in 2019-20. So those are the 4 teams that are already qualified. And as said, Burt, Brown, Rock, Scheidegger, and Walker will be in Ottawa. Scott, I think there's a clear favorite here, but what do you think?
It's Laura Walker, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Coming off a medal at the Scotties last year, strong team, a lot of experience front to top to bottom in that lineup. Nadine will be coming back, is that right? After having a baby?
I think that is the plan.
I've got her on the curling zone as representing. She's on there on the team, so
Okay.
that's what I think. Also, they used Rochelle Brown at the Scotties, and she will be there with Kelsey Rock's team. So,
Right.
I think Laura Walker's the favorite. I think that Casey Scheidegger is sort of the wild card. We haven't seen them in a couple of years. Pandemic, and then Casey had taken time off to have a baby. So that's a team that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they won. Right. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't win a game. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, just with the layoff and for them, and specifically for Casey herself. Yeah. So what's interesting too about this 5-person group, I mean, Suzanne Burt, she's made the playoffs in an event that she's already played in. I know that. Laura Walker, that team had I believe a pretty good start to their season at the event in Edmonton. So you look and you say, like, who's playing well coming into this, and you know, those 2 teams have had good starts. But at the same time, you look at Suzanne Burt, she always kind of needs a day or 2 at a Scotties, and it'll be sort of curious to see. No one has really had a chance so far this year to play on arena ice. We don't know what this ice is going to be like, but they're trying to make it as arena-like ice as they can from all accounts. So will that provide an advantage to Kelsey Rock, Laura Walker, who probably have the most experience on arena ice of all these teams? Not that the other ones don't have that experience, but, you know, certainly Suzanne Burt, when you practice on that East Coast ice, coming to arena ice, it can take some time. Now, on the women's side, you have more time, given that 3 teams are going to qualify out of these 5. So an early loss isn't as harmful as it will be on the men's side. But that is something to keep an eye on. Just how quickly does Suzanne Burt adjust to the ice? And if she adjusts fast, she's got a great chance here.
Yeah. I'm looking at her draw. They've got Team Brown, then Scheidegger, then Rock, then Walker as part of their round robin. So maybe a chance to get a little. All these teams are good, but maybe, you know, keep it close with a team like Corinne Brown, who tends to like to hit.
Yeah, they like it more open.
So
yeah, that's a real contrast to styles between those 2 teams.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So you know, we'll see how it goes along. I think that schedule sort of favors them building a bit towards the end. Like you said, they did finish second in an event earlier this year in Nova Scotia, so a lot of confidence built from that. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So again, the 2 teams that do not qualify on the women's side for the trials will get to go to the pre-trial. So we could see all 5 of these teams potentially in Saskatoon. Of these 5, I think Corinne Brown is the team that probably has the most to gain from it. I guess maybe Kelsey Rock too, but you know, Corinne Brown at the Scotties last year, she had that game, I think it was Tuesday morning, the best individual game we saw in the round robin portion, I would argue, before the championship pool. And so she has that potential to get there. She's still young. She has the world experience from juniors. So if she can get into the trials this year, not that there would be an expectation, I don't think, to win the trials, but that experience could set her up really well for the next quad.
Yeah, I think it would be a real great experience for them to get into the trials directly. And we saw that the Brendan Botcher team, you know, really experienced from going to the trials and playing out against all that great competition. They came out in the next quad and really started putting it together.
Yeah. So let's move into what we can definitively call the pre-trials. This is the Canadian Curling Pre-Trials Direct Entry event. So 8 men's teams, 8 women's teams will be competing in the Pre-Trials Direct Entry event, and the teams are competing to get into the pre-trials in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. 2 men's teams, 2 women's teams will qualify. This is going to be a lot easier for us to follow, Scott, because it is a triple knockout format, straight traditional ABC draws the way you're used to at a local spiel, the way they used to do, or even some province. I think Manitoba still does this for their provincial championship. So this will be easy and a lot of fun to follow, I think.
Yeah, this will be good. So the way it'll work, it'll be triple knockout straight up, right?
Yeah, straight up triple knockout. Lose 3, get out.
Lose 3 and you're done.
Yeah.
And so let's go through the teams that are competing really quick.
Okay, so let's start on the women's side. We got Abby Ackland from Winnipeg, the great Jill Brothers coming in from Halifax, Carrie Galusha, the team from the north who has been down south for a few weeks now. They will be there. Ashley Howard from Saskatoon, Lauren Mann, a name that we haven't heard in a while on the national level. She's local to Ottawa, but she has some Scotties experience. You do have Team Jesse Hunkin, which was Robin Silvernagel's team. They'll be there. Laurie St. George, who had the great Scotties run last year, but not enough of a run to get into the direct entry trials event. So she'll be here to try and secure a spot in the pre-trials. And then Sarah Wark, who has represented British Columbia, I believe at the 2020 Scotties. It was Team Wark, and you have a shirt, right, Scott?
I do have a team shirt, a Team Wark shirt with
Yes.
modeled on Lucky Lager.
So all of those teams, we have seen them, I think, at Scotties, maybe not all the individual players. I don't think Ashley Howard has skipped at a Scotties. And we should note, too, that Abby Ackland will be throwing second, and Caitlin Jones will be throwing fourth for that team out of Winnipeg. Caitlin Jones, we have seen before, a really good player, Scott, right? Like she can make the big one at the end of the game. And who knows what'll happen with that dynamic. We've seen it work really well before, where you have a fourth thrower who, when they don't have to call the game, kind of improves their throwing a little bit.
Yeah. It's she's a very, very good thrower, good junior career. So, we're assuming that this is Abby Ackland skipping with Caitlin Jones throwing. We're not 100% sure, but
according to the information we have,
yes, according to the latest info that we can find, that's the way it's looking to set up. Interesting to note. Maybe we should break down the initial matchups in the bracket.
That's a good idea. Yeah. What's the first round here?
So the first round, we've got Team Jones Ackland against Ashley Howard.
Okay.
So a couple of younger teams there.
Yeah.
Then underneath them, Team Galusha against Team Wark. Team Galusha coming off a big win at the KW Spiel this past weekend.
Yeah, and actually, interestingly enough, they beat Holly Duncan at the KW Spiel, and that was the final the week before at the Stu Sells in Oakville, and Holly Duncan came on top in that game. So kind of interesting that the two Spiels, the two big women's Spiels in Ontario, had the same final of Holly Duncan and Carrie Galusha, and they split them.
Yeah, and for the Team Galusha, Carrie's been dealing with a bit of an injury, so had a spare playing with them over the weekend, and then their coach came in for the last game for that championship, and Carrie has been throwing lead when she has been playing, but still calling the game.
Yeah, we saw that last year at the Scotties. I think even a little in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, where Carrie wasn't throwing the last rock, where it was Joanne Rizzo was throwing that last rock. Yeah, and you had Sarah Colton still throwing the third shot with Carrie calling the game. And it does seem like that injury for Carrie, that is a long-term injury that maybe she'll never actually get back to form. And she's talked about potentially retiring. We'll see what happens here at the end of this season. But hopefully she can get through the week without having to take any games or ends off. And for their sake, you hope that there's some quick games too, get some big leads and get out off the ice as quick as you can.
Yeah, for sure. they're coming in hot, so if they're playing well, they can
Yep.
beat anybody.
Absolutely.
Let's go down to the bottom half of the bracket. Sean, we've got Team Saint George against Team Brothers.
Okay. And a young team versus an experienced team. This will be a fun match actually to watch. I kind of hope that's the game that they stream, that draw. Jill Brothers has, as I said, lots of experience, tons of Scotties experience, and Laurie St. George really kind of came out of nowhere last year. Great run at the Scotties, and it'll be fun to see if they can keep that up and to see what this season holds for them, where all the excitement they generated, a little bit of expectation, potentially even on themselves. It'll be fun to see how they have improved or what they've worked on over the course of the summer and where the state of their game as we come into this season.
Yeah, the Team Rockstars energy will be there. That'll
Absolutely.
be cool.
Always is.
And then to round it out, Team Hunkin against Team Man. I'm going to look at... So Jesse Hunkin is throwing fourth with Robin Silvernagel out, having just given birth.
Yes. So that team will be a force. They always are. Robin Silvernagel has had a good team, and I know this is a different team that we didn't see last year because it was a different team from what we saw at the 2020 Scotties. But that'll be a big game between Hunkin / Silvernagel and Lauren Mann and her team, the local squad. So I don't know, those matchups are kind of interesting. I think it works out in a sense. I'm curious how they did that. But you don't have the young teams against each other or the experienced teams against each other. It seems like a nice mix actually, where you have some matchups between the experienced and the younger teams.
Yeah, it'll be pretty cool. Hopefully we can get out there maybe that day or the next to take it all in.
Absolutely. So out of those 8 teams, Scott, who would you pick to get through this?
It's going to be hard for me to bet against Kerry Galusha, given those last 2 weeks and how well they're playing. These teams, they don't seem to be like any bigger of a challenge than they've seen in the Stucels and the KW Spiel. So I'd pick them. Probably give the edge to... this is really hard. I don't think there is an edge for the second one.
No, I think it's a pretty wide open field. I agree. And I would probably pick Kerry Galusha. They're playing great. And I might go with Sarah Wark here as the other team, with Laurie St. George as sort of my third pick for those spots. But it's a pretty wide open field.
Pretty open. I would pick maybe Lauren Mann's team, the local favorites here. So yeah, like tough, real tough.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun to track that one. So let's move on over to the men's side. Scott, on this one, we actually had a team decline its berth. Steve Laycock and the team from BC with Jim Cotter that we've seen at the Briar the past couple of years, they are not participating. They did qualify, but they will not be there. So we do still have 8 teams, and I'm very excited about a couple of these teams. So let's run through them real quick. We have Corey Chambers and his team from Winnipeg will be there. We have Jacques Gauthier, the world junior champion from 2020. Sean Grassi, who lost the 2020 Manitoba final to Jason Gunlickson. Willie Lyburn, also out of Winnipeg. I don't know, you could have really just held this event in Winnipeg. 6 of the teams are from Winnipeg. But Willie Lyburn, we've seen him certainly in Manitoba Provincials, always a strong team, playoff team at that. Sean Meacham, if you've never seen Sean Meacham play, I really hope they stream a game, and I hope everybody gets to see what Sean Meacham does. He has the most unique equipment setup that I've ever seen on a curler, and it's great to watch. And I've asked him about it in the past. He says he just does it, and that's why he does it. Scott, he puts a slider on his drag foot.
Yeah.
It just looks interesting when you see him play. Vincent Roberge from Etchemin, Quebec. They will be there. I believe they were not the junior rep for Quebec not that long ago. I think that's a younger team from Quebec. JT Ryan, the Canadian junior champion 2019, I believe. So they will be there from Winnipeg. And then Ryan Weeb also from Winnipeg, taking the final spot here, Scott. This field, I gotta say, doesn't feel quite as wide open to me. But what is your assessment as we look at these 8 teams?
Well, these 8 teams, this is really, with the exception of Willie Lyburn and maybe Sean Grassy, it's the young Bucks field, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems to me that we've got a lot of young junior players in Alberta and Saskatchewan, or Manitoba and Saskatchewan rather. Let's put together an event for them. Like
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Meacham might maybe not in that category either, but I mean there's the majority here is the younger side. The skews young this field.
It really does, yeah. And if I'm picking favorites here, I might go with the experience of a Willie Lyburn, and his team with his third Daly Peters, a really good player, bring the heat when he needs to, and then maybe Jacques Gauthier.
Yeah,
I think being world champion, there's something to say about that. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if any one of these teams that go through.
Right. I mean, I'd be a little surprised if Sean Grassy or Sean Meacham gets through, to be honest. But I mean, they're there. They have a chance, right? They have more of a chance than I do. So, if you're in the field, you got a chance. And I think Steve Laycock not being there in this particular field, if they had decided to participate, and I certainly understand why they chose not to, I think they'd be a favorite just experience-wise over all these teams. Having them gone does open this up. I think if I were picking of what I would maybe want, I think if you have Gauthier and Ryan go through, I think that's really good, to have 2 young teams get that extra experience in this process, because when we look ahead 4 years and who's going to be in play in 2026, both of those teams you would think are going to be there in 2026 at the trials. Certainly they would be guaranteed spots in the pre-trials if they choose to continue to play at the elite level.
Mm-hmm.
So, get them that experience now. That could be good. But I agree. This is going to be a wide open field, and a team like Roberge, a team like Weeb, who we're not as familiar with, but we have seen at events before, they get through, particularly in the case of Roberge, where if you're looking at who is going to come out of Quebec, is there going to be a men's team that rises out of Quebec to be a national power? Maybe it's them. And if they can get that experience here, that's great. So it'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, for sure, fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to the pre-trials, like to those teams that have already qualified that aren't these teams, and probably the teams that get in will not be, sort of favorites to get in. Whereas the teams that are directly qualifying for the trials, a team like Dunstone, we could see them contend for that Olympic berth. Like, I don't think any of the teams that we're seeing in this pre-trials direct entry event are going to be wearing the maple leaf at the end of the day.
It's unlikely for sure. And again, the reason that they are doing this is because we didn't have the full season, and they didn't want to eliminate teams for lack of opportunity to compete at events. So I understand why they're doing this, but you're right that it is unlikely that there will be a team who is participated in this pre-trials direct entry event that makes it into the pre-trials out in Liverpool next month.
Yeah, for sure. So either way, it's going to be like a great competition. Lots of permutations for what could happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why you play the game, right?
Yeah, for sure. You play to win. So currently, if anyone's wondering, there are currently 10 teams qualified for the pre-trials in both the men's and the women's. So this will round out those fields to 12. We'll talk about all those teams who are qualified when we get to the pre-trials. But basically, if there's a team where you're like, why aren't they at this event? It's because they're already in the pre-trials. That's basically it. So, right, your Krista McCarville types have already qualified there. And also a team that has qualified, and a bit of news over the weekend, Scott, you might not have seen as you were traveling, but Mike Fournier announced that he is retiring from competitive curling, not at the end of this season, at the end of this Olympic qualifying period. So his team is in the pre-trials. If they don't make it to the trials, that's it. So according to the Post, so he's not going to compete in the Quebec Playdowns this year. So that pre-trials could very well be the last time we see Mike Fournier. And so just a piece of news there as we move forward. And always enjoyed seeing Mike Fournier at the Brier, of course, 2018, his first appearance, and then this past year. Almost, they're so close to making that championship pool round. That Wednesday night loss when they had the chance really hurt them. But that's a fun team, so it'll be great to see them again.
Yeah, I did manage to see that while I was on the road. I actually read it this morning. But yeah, it's well reasoned, and he'll keep giving us his blog, which is really the most important thing.
Yeah, so that's where we are with the pre-trials and then the pre-trials. So again, we have the direct entry to the trials events and then the pre-trials to get 2 spots into the pre-trials. Scott, the Olympic road begins now. Are you ready?
It does, yes. And it's a long road. I'm excited for it. It's going to be great.
Yes, from Ottawa to Liverpool to Saskatoon to Beijing, we are on the road to an Olympic gold medal for somebody. Maybe one of these teams. Who knows?
Maybe.
That would be something, though, if one of these teams ends up winning a gold medal in Beijing and they start their journey in an empty RA center with you and I as the potentially only spectators at a draw.
Maybe that's the question we should ask all these teams. Like, how crazy would it be if you won a gold medal at the Olympics? That'd be pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's such a bad question.
Or what would you do if you won a gold medal? And we'll ask that to like the lead on Sean Meacham's team.
Nice. I like that.
See what happens. But I mean, it would be fun. It's interesting to me to think of this sport. Like compare these guys and women, men and women who have a chance, and some of them a legitimate chance, more legitimate than potentially others who are going to be there this week, to win a gold medal, right? There are teams that are world-class teams who are coming to Ottawa for this event. And their Olympic journey is going to start in a converted hockey arena with no fans and very limited media. Compare that to the people who are going to win the gold medal in hockey in Beijing, all of whom are millionaires.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Very different.
But we will be there every step of the way. Well, we'll be there some steps of the way. So follow along with us on social media, on Twitter, at Game of Stones Pod. We'll also be doing some photos, maybe even some Instagram living. So check out the Instagram, also at Game of Stones Pod. Head on over to the website at gameofstonespod.com. You can find all of our past episodes there. We might even do a live blog one day or for one draw. We'll see. There's also a chance that we might do something live, a bit of a live stream, maybe from the arena if we can. We don't actually know what the facilities are going to be like, and whether we could do a potential stream. So keep an eye out on the socials and the website. We'll announce something if we can, and do follow, of course, the Facebook page as well, facebook.com/Game of Stones podcast. If we do a live stream, it'll likely be from there. But again, we might do an Instagram live. So just follow along. We'll have some fun as we can. And as I said, next week's episode, we'll have some behind the scenes from the pre-trials and the direct entry event from Ottawa, some audio from some of the players, some of our perceptions of what happened. So it should be a lot of fun to be there. I wish we could have fans, but we're grateful to Curling Canada for the opportunity for us to be there. So do subscribe to the show if you have not yet, so you can get that episode next week. Do the likes, ratings, comments, all that good stuff helps other people find the show. So Scott, welcome home.
Thanks. Safe drive to you back home.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you later this week. We will meet up at the RA Center for some live curling action. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.